originated from him. How?
Then can you say that the founder of the tradition is an exception to the tradition?
Of course,
in terms
of course, yeah.
In
the
very fact that he didn't receive an education.
It is better not to say the founder of tradition, no. If he mentioned the word tradition, then we refer to others before.
Mystical tradition.
It's better to say language.
Yeah.
Language.
Also, I think maybe we can look at it as his language and his way of expressing himself was later interpreted by other Urufa and then explained in many different ways through through this education, through intellectuality and using different philosophical terms, metaphysical terms. Is that a way to look at it? So you start out with these expressions, that he had, and then later on, how are these expressions true based on intellectuality in that sense? Maybe that's one way to look at it.
But how does the later tradition explain the fact that the founder was not?
That is very important. You know that the mystery of that, to understand some about that mystery, is if you understand especially 4th century. This period of 3rd century up to 6th century, especially the 4th century, it is an exceptional period. We don't know sociologically what was happening in the Islamic world, that we had such figures. I don't know, and many people doesn't know. Some people, these people who are safe, who look at things economically or sociologically, the society was like that, the class separation was like that. But I don't know. I do not have any research on that. As far as I searched among those who know that area, as far as this language is concerned, like Dr. Shafiq Katkani, for example, they also don't know. Let me give you a portion of that mystery. You go to the 4th century and 5th century. I'm going to talk about Kharavani now. Look at Kharavani. He was in a small village. Still it is very small when you go. And surprisingly, that village was famous to be the most famous thief in the all people were not going to. And that village was famous about that. At the time of Kharavani, you look at the scientific figure of the Islamic world, the one who did such a profound, adequate, and miraculous scientific research, Abu Rayhan Biruni, Al-Biruni, at the same time. While Biruni was doing that research in Kharazm, in such a high quality, if you have time, I am ready to explain that. How was his research method? At the same time, in the scientific realm, you have that. In the philosophical realm and medicine, you have Avicenna at the same time. In the other part, from another angle, philosophy. At the same time, from mystical realm, you have Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair. These three figures who are the corner of the Islamic civilizations. In Abu Sa'id Abu al-Khair, it is first time that we can draw a cosmology of mysticism. People like Bayazid said these things, but 200 years after, there were people who put this in a theoretical system, and that system is going to be educated and was going to be educated. If you are asking about the educational system of this mystical approach, it was created at that time. Just, for example, I cannot compare the two, but to be more easy to understand, when the Prophet was there, we didn't have a knowledge of hadith or fiqh or this kind of thing. This was created 150 years after. And the people started to create that discipline to understand what the founder said. So in the time of Prophet, or in the time of the first and second or third caliph or fourth, you don't see an officially recognized branch of Islamic knowledge called hadith, or called usul, or called fiqh, or called, you didn't have that. And it was after getting distant from the source, from the sun, that this kind of interpretation and discipline for knowledge was created to protect the core which was created before. What I can say is that the level of tolerance among the people of Khorasan at that time, at least, I'm not talking about the other part of the Islamic world, but Khorasan, for example. Or if you come to Ain al-Ghazat or Hallaj, other parts as well, was so high that somebody like Kharahani used to say these things and Bayazid. And at the same time, in Bastam, there were fuqaha who used to teach their fiqh. There were theologians who used to argue theologically about God. All of them were working in an environment and all acceptable. It was a social situation that these kind of attitude didn't provoke violence and things like that. And this is the miracle of that time. Yes, Rebecca.
I don't think it's, I mean, obviously, from what I've read, my limited reading, there was a lot of conflict around. They may have been able to say these kinds of things, but it's not like everyone was good friends and happily accepting, there was a lot of pushing and pulling between the establishment of the schools of thought. The Sufis or the mystics had to justify themselves. They were under a lot of pressure. And Junaid, from what I understand of reading Michael Sell's book, Junaid seems to have said about Bayezid's Mi'raj that it was just the beginning of a stage of, he said that Bastami thought he had attained the ultimate fana, but actually that was just, he hadn't even passed the first threshold. So, I see it as a time when I think it was a time that it was difficult for the authorities to control basically what was going on among people, and because of that, it gave a kind of a leeway for people to have all kinds of approaches and all kinds of ideas. But it was a time when there was a lot of discussion and debate and people doing takfir on each other, and so I don't think it was. I think maybe it's because there wasn't that centralized. The Abbasids were not, or whoever came before, the Umayyads were not successful in having a centralized power, and that's why these people were able to, go around saying these things. And from what I understand with Hallaj, he was really executed because of being involved in an attempted coup, teamed up with some Hanbali people and attempted a political, overthrow, and that's why he was executed. But they used An al-Haq as a kind of a pretext for him to be executed. So I don't personally. My impression is not that it was a time when everyone was just kind of, tolerating each other. I think there was a lot of conflict. It looks like there was a lot of conflict at that time.
I think you're totally right. Yeah. What I meant was not that there was no problem. No, there was lots of problems. But the fact is that there was a problem, but somehow they lived together. You know, when I come to Ain al-Qazat, you will see that is the culmination of this controversiality. Ain al-Qazat was killed because of his wording when he was 33. But Ahmad Ghazali used to say the same things. Kharaqani used to say almost the same thing. Bayazid the same thing. One of them, Ain al-Qazat, was killed. But there were many other figures used to say the same thing. Ahmad Ghazali was very respected. He was not killed. He had problems. And well respected by a portion of the society. But he managed to live respectfully. He was not accepted anywhere. He was not welcome to go to a preaching pulpit or thing like that. And even, as you mentioned, in the case of Hallaj, that there was an attempted coup behind the story of killing. In the case of Ain al-Qazat was the same. It was the minister of the king in Damascus in this area that they thought that the Wazir thought that Ain al-Qazat was behind supporting one of them. It was some kind of political competition who used the Ain al-Qazat wording, or as you mentioned, Hallaj wording, as a pretext to kill. This is brilliant because this doesn't mean there were no problem, but there was not, a catastrophe. They lived. Somehow their teaching remained. This is important. The importance is that you have that time Sultan Mahmud Ghaznavi, one of the famous, Sultan Mahmud, king of Ghazna, and he was, the one who was helping Ferdowsi and others for that period of history. Sultan Mahmud, with that kind of despotic rule and unconditional power politically, he came to Karagan and he asked Abu Hassan to let him to go and see and visit him. And Kharaqani let him. And when he came, I will tell you the story when I come to Kharaqani. The very fact that Sultan Mahmud, with all of this environment that you know, there was such a situation that Sultan Mahmud felt that he should go and visit Kharaqani. Or Avicenna. Avicenna is such a scholar who used to follow scientific rules, philosophical understanding, philosophical argumentation. He traveled from Bukhara to Kharaqan to visit Abul Hassan. I mean, this environment, that different realms of language and ideas somehow were living together, not without problem, of course. This is what we didn't see after 6th century. You don't see that. And even now, you don't see. Those who visited Bastam know that he visited it. When you go to Bayazid in Bastam now, it's a very simple grave. You don't have many visitors. You know why? Because it still is controversial. Because he is in Khorasan, and Khorasan has been the base of traditional ulama, fuqaha. In my town, people we were going to, from my town when I was a child, in the night of Qadr in Ramadan, after reciting Quran in the mosque and things like that, about 2 o'clock after midnight, we used to take these lamps, because we didn't have light at that, and travel by foot, walking to Bastam, 6 kilometers. By Sahar, we we were with Bayezid and prayed and come back. People used to do that, but you are not allowed. I don't mean that the government doesn't. No. They run the people. The ulama doesn't like it. So, for example, if I want to try to have a big conference about Bayezid or Kharaqani in my town, it is rather difficult. And that is the reason that 2-3 years ago, the Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of the country, he visited Shahrud. And he said that when I mentioned Kharaqani and Bayezid, these great figures of Islamic civilization, he mentioned. And you know that Bayezid and Kharaqani, officially they are Sunnis. They're not Shia. And he said that these great figures, when I mentioned, he said that, don't think that I am defending Darwish and Sufism and all of this nonsense ceremony. No, they are different. They are different. By the word that they are different, he wanted to open some way that people think of the legacy of that. Still we have problem. But somehow the grave is there. They didn't destroy it. This is the situation. This is beautiful that somehow they live together.
Yes. Thank you. I try to understand that these lectures try to present the test of mystical experience. Yeah. We can say the test how all of us can feel the mystical expression, experience that Arif or when someone like Bayezid has experienced. I just would some element question I have been addressed by my friend, and they will also answer well. But I would like to know the relevance. Maybe you can clarify what is the relevance of this topic. With the theme of seminar,
Rationality and
intellectuality
spirituality.
and spirituality, because in some scholars said the Sufis or Arif like Bayezid, this is a product of culture at the time, at the story. But when we talk about Ibn Arabi, Birumi, or the spirituality of the Prophet and Imam alaihi salam, it is culture but also universality. I mean, maybe you can clarify what's the relevance of this topic, testing their mystical experience in shatas, many shatas, shatah in my Indonesia, shatah we call it. What is the relevance for our?
Yeah, very good question. Very good question. The relevance goes back to the language. This is a crucial word because you are mentioning the production of the social context, and you mentioned different periods of Rumi and others. Let me give an example from our time, which is the time of communication, and people can find different sources. In our time, let me give you an example. After revolution in Iran, there was a man, Ayatollah Talabani here, who was, after Imam Khomeini, he was, you can say, the most powerful social figure. That when he called the people to come on demonstrations, in millions they come. And he was appointed at the first Friday prayer of Iran in Tehran. And millions of people. He was a very unusual, loved man by anybody, by everybody, even the leftists and communists and Orthodox people from that side, or Armenians or Christians. They loved him. because of his background. And I had, this was not that he was not following his own direct Islamic way. No, he was very radical. But his social behavior and his social language was different. In the Iranian TV after revolution, I was at that time 29. I had a weekly program with Talabani about tafsir in the TV. And the title was With Quran in the Scene. We wanted to explain that how the Quranic teachings can come to the social scene, not for the corner of, we socially should live by that. And that program was very famous because of Talabani. He was very much influential, so that the traffic of Tehran at that time was calm. When Talabani suddenly died, Imam Khomeini continued that program himself to keep that momentum. But his style was different from Talabani, completely different. Talabani used to have to say his interpretation from social meanings of the Quranic verse, and Imam Khomeini went to his mystical understanding. It's completely different from Talabani, but in the same title of the program. And now I can say that, perhaps I cannot say in the Friday prayer, but here in the classroom I can say that when Imam Khomeini was talking mystically about the Quranic understanding, the ulama of Khorasan started to write to him and protest. Not openly, they didn't dare, but they used to write him what he's saying. He's making kafir, people kafir, and he's changing everything. Because Ayatollah Khomeini, Imam Khomeini used to say that when we talk about Bismillah, he spoke about 3-4 program about the Bismillah. He said that all of us are Ismullah, all of us. So everybody is Ismullah, everything is Ismullah, it's the name of God. And he was going to explain what did this mean and things like that. He was criticized by people, and suddenly he had a heart attack, and he moved from Qom to Tehran, and then he stayed in Tehran until the end of his life, and he didn't continue that program anymore. And many people, including myself, we went to him that, why you don't continue? And he said, no. But the real reason was that he didn't want to provoke this kind of mentality. In the last program of that series, this is the point you said. Imam Khomeini mentioned the problem of language. He said that I want to solve this problem of language. He said this is the problem of language. That Fuqaha are against Urafa. Urafa are against Fuqaha. This type of Islamic thinking against that type. All of this controversiality, because we don't want to accept that there are different languages. And he told the people in TV, he said that do not deprive people of moving in the realm of different languages. Don't limit yourself only to one language of fiqh, of one language of that. He said, keep yourself moving in different languages. And he said that, he mentioned that, example, he said that this is a large table that there are different colorful foods here. Don't limit yourself on one special food from this Islamic knowledge or Islamic understanding, said that Urafa, he mentioned Hafiz. He said Urafa had their own language. If you want to understand them, go to their language. Don't criticize them out of the realm of that language. He said that I want to reconcile between ulama, Urafa and Fuqaha. Because this was even his problem. You know that when 2 years ago in Iran, because of 700 years of the birth of Rumi, we were celebrating Jalaluddin Rumi in different conferences. Some member of ulama issued fatwa against. They said that Rumi is against that. Because still language is not understandable. This is the problem of that time and this time, even that time, now. But the glory of that time, compared to the centuries after, is that somehow they live together and they listen together. Somehow they live there. The relevance, your question, now I come to relevance. The relevance of this discussion to the topic of seminar, which is intellectuality and spirituality, is that intellectually you should understand different realms of language of spirituality. When you talk about the theory of meaning, all of discussion of in the modern West, you can refer to the same kind of discussion between, for example, Wittgenstein and others, that rationally, intellectually, we should accept that different language games, different language systems may be helpful to explain different corners of the understanding of the Islamic cosmology. So the relevance, if I want to summarize, is that spirituality can carry its own languages. Intellectually, we can talk how different languages can serve one entity. Yeah, Rebecca.
I've got a few points.
Yeah.
Sorry, but few points here. We only have 3 minutes because it says on there.
Okay. The issue of language. Okay, first of all, I think that it's a bit of a false dichotomy to say that there's this the only split is between the Urafa and the Fuqaha, because there is a spirituality that is different from that which these Urafa have kind of engaged in. So, I mean, with the case that you're talking about, it may have been that there was a split between Fuqaha and Urafa, but at the same time, don't you think that, okay, you can say, well, spirituality has its own language, but couldn't it be argued that this language distorts the language of of authentic spirituality? So this language that has developed is we could say, okay, it's its own language, but it's not free of
side effects.
Values. Yeah, I mean, Nietzsche said that spirituality is aestheticism. So this is Nietzsche's position. If we look at Oscar Wilde as well, I mean, his whole dissertation on the picture of Dorian Gray was about the appreciation of beauty regardless of values. So I just wonder whether this is a kind of convenient excuse to say, well, this is the language of mysticism, and so we should understand it. And the people who don't like it, they're just these dry-minded fuqaha who don't understand.
I think I got your point. And that's a very good point. I think I got it. Please stop me if I'm not. Yes, it is. It could be used as an excuse. Could be, yes. First of all, it is not only the clash between fuqaha and urafa. No, it's the clash between theologians, between philosophers, between all of these groups. The reason that Jalaluddin Maulana immigrated from Balkh to Konya was not fuqaha. There were the clash of Fakhr Razi and all of these philosophical discussions at that time. And so the clash was not only with fuqaha. Secondly, we have in the Islamic history in Iran, we have fuqaha, who are very deep fuqaha, who are very deep mystic. At the same time, look at Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, that whom we are going to visit. He is a